Welcome to the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast, offering tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of All Things Book Marketing. I'm your host, Olivia McCoy, and today our special guest is Holland Saltzman, the owner of The Novel Neighbor and founder of The Noble Neighbor. Hi, Holland.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Of course. Thank you for joining us. This is kind of an exciting interview because groundbreaking news happened this last week, right? And
Yes.
So, I guess when this comes out, will be this last month. And so we were super excited that you had the free time to come and join us kind of last minute and jump on to talk about it. But let's start with an introduction, who you and what The Novel Neighbor is.
Sure. Excuse me. My name's Holland Saltzman, and I own The Novel Neighbor here in St. Louis, Missouri, which is an independent. We always say more than a bookstore. That's sort of the hashtag that we've had since the get-go. So we do new books for adults as well as kids, locally made gifts, and then we have community meeting spaces for, I think we've got 9 book clubs now. People rent it out for showers. We had a wedding and all kinds of great things to, bring the community together. And then The Noble Neighbor that you mentioned is our nonprofit that we started in 2019. And the only mission of the nonprofit is to bring authors into underserved schools so that when authors are on tour for their books, we can host them in any schools here in the St. Louis area.
Incredible.
And those kids can get free books. So it's great.
That sounds really great. And then the breaking news, I'm going to do a little drum roll, but I'm going to let you say it.
Yep. So the USA Today book list, best-selling book list is back. That was headlines last week, and everyone is so excited. And it sort of seems like you're like, yeah, this is breaking news. I was like, oh, right. We've been working on it for like 3 to 4 months behind the scenes. So it feels like it's been going on for a while. But yes, it was a really fun week last week.
Oh, it's so exciting. I know. So the USA Today kind of closed shop and shut down in December. So
the bestseller list went on hiatus.
Yes,
Yeah, they had some still book content going on, but yeah, the bestseller list went on hiatus.
And now it is back and better than ever.
Yes.
So give us a brief rundown of this exciting news. What is it? What's going on? Why are we excited?
So the best seller list for USA Today is they've always called themselves sort of the people's books top, like book selling list, the best way to say it, because it is purely generated by book sales and what people are buying without any massaging. And it's a great list. It's 150, which is more than some of the other lists. And it's just always been kind of a great representation what people across the country are reading. And so what's the most exciting about this one being back is it's got a heavy independent bookstore influence, not only in what's making up the list, but in how you can purchase your books. And so it just from beginning to end, we are super excited to be a part of this.
And how is this different than the last time it was running before hiatus? What's different now?
So one way is they are working with bookshop.org, which is, if anybody is not familiar, it's sort of the online purchasing place for books that supports independent bookstores. So if you would like your money going towards independent bookstores as opposed to bazillionaires, it is a great and phenomenal resource. And it's always, I think it's been around since 20, I'm going to mess this up. 2020, no.
Bookshop is from 2020.
I was going to say 2020. I've messed it up on a couple other places. So 2020. But in only 3 years, we could check. It's got up to the minute statistics that has given, I think, over $20 million back to independent bookstores. So not only is it a great resource, but it gives back every purchase, 10% goes to an independent bookstore. So number one, they are sending some of their sales numbers into this book list, as well as more independent bookstores are reporting to this list. The American Booksellers Association, the ABA, they collect our data as well, and they're not fully doing it. I think that's sort of one of our next, not beta, but one of the things we hope to get to is that they will be reporting to this consistently as well. But for right now, I'd have to check with Eric to know the most recent numbers. But in the past, they sort of had maybe 5 big indies reporting to the list, but this one's got a lot more of independent bookstores reporting, which gives, again, more diverse and flavor and kind of more interesting to the list because it's not just what's being sold online in big box stores. So, and then when you're actually looking at the bestseller list, they've got Bookshop kind of highlighted as the place to buy your books. And so you can choose to get them from other online retailers, but it's great that it is being featured, very much highlighted, if you will, that USA Today bestseller list really wanted to have this independent bookstore focus, and just that they're behind indies all the way, which is phenomenal.
Bookshop.org is also a great follow on Instagram's new platform Threads.
You are the second person who said that today. I have a text here that someone's like, their social media person is killing it on Threads. And it's perfect this week because there's a lot of publicity out between them and then Libro, which is the great place to get your audiobooks that supports indies, about all the reasons that you can be supporting them. And they're doing a lot of deals and discounts this week, sort of as the anti-prime, which is great. I've got to go check it out. We have a phenomenal social media person, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but she was at Taylor Swift this past week. And so we weren't jumping on Threads yet because we needed her back. But yeah. I'm still trying to figure it all out.
Well, Smith Publicity is now on Threads too. So we've been kind of poking around, and you're right. Libro FM and Bookshop.org are really great follows. They're super fun, super creative, and we've just really been enjoying the conversation, but they've been talking about supporting indies too, especially with Prime Week. But let's go back to the bestseller list, USA Today, and tell us about how The Novel Neighbor is working with USA Today bestseller list now.
Sure. So in part of the conversations when we came to the table, as well as Nancy Sheed from Sheed Communications, when they sort of approached us because we had worked on some projects together about, at first, the first conversation was, we didn't even know if it was consulting, if we were all just kind of chatting about this bestseller list, because certainly Nancy and her work had been missing this list. We always loved the bestseller list from USA Today. And from the first conversation, it really, like I said, immediately they wanted to have this indie support. So it was great. And we talked about what else that could look like. And so one of the ways that they thought would be great, and the people writing some of the content for their staff are just incredibly bookish people who are so excited about everything that's happening in the literary world. They talked about highlighting a different indie each week. And so we're helping curate that and just kind of work with indies can apply through this web address, and then each week. So we got lucky enough to be featured as the first Get to Know Your Indie. And then last week, I think it was Storyhouse Book Pub. And then it's a group this week called Bookish, I believe is the bookstore. And so we're just sort of helping curate the content as the bookstores apply to be featured, which, there's no, thank God, lack of indies right now. So, we will have plenty of content, and it's so great to know. And so they get to kind of put forward why they're unique, why people should shop indie, but also they've got a lot of great book recommendations of what they can't keep on their shelves, what they're looking forward to reading in the next couple of months. So that's one of kind of 3 pieces of content. The second one, our social media director, Cassie King, is doing original content for them once a week. And so the first week was like Taylor, she's known for her books as looks kind of articles and some she's got a just thumb on pop culture. So it was like Taylor Swift's Eras Tours as books. And then I think, if I'm not, well, this will already be later, but there may be a Barbie one this week that is going to be tied into bookish covers as well. So, anything from back to school, adulting, some of the pop culture stuff, beach reads. She's just going to try to each week present some phenomenal reads, but in a really original way. And then the third way is we have been known, which is how I think they originally had, we were on the radar screen. We've been really well known for our mystery boxes. And this is something that we started during the pandemic. Somebody would call and say, hey, my grandson likes soccer, rainbows, koalas, and graphic novels, and I've got $50. Can you put something together? Because when they couldn't come in the store, it was tricky to shop. And we're like, sure. Or my neighbor's retiring, and they're really interested in gardening and history as well as romance. Who knows? And here's a budget. Can you put it together? And we, after doing this 5 or 6, 7, 10 times informally, we thought this could be a thing. And so we created these mystery boxes. And so when we were talking with USA Today from the get-go about this, we were sharing with them some of the letters we've gotten. And some of them are like, dear bookseller, I need to believe in love again. I've just broken up, but I know it was best for me. But I need, I want to read some books that make me believe in love again. Or somebody was talking about how May's kind of a tricky month because they lost their mom, but they really love mother-daughter stories. Or somebody was like, I'm headed to the beach for a week. I want all your staff reads. And they wrote a note to themselves like, you've kicked ass this year. Put your phone down, read some books. And so it's so fun being on the receiving end of getting to curate these gifts for other people, or even when people are just sort of taking care of themselves. And so on a weekly basis, for those of us of a certain age, we're referencing Dear Abby, but it's like Dear Bookseller. So each week you can tune in and read a real life story that someone has presented to us, and then what we either suggested then, or, if it's a few months later, we might have new books we would have suggested. So you'll be seeing 3 pieces of content from the Novel Neighbor each week in USA Today.
That is so exciting. And I love that personal touch. I know it really makes a difference with readers and with other industry professionals like myself. That's definitely something. I worked in a bookstore once upon a time back in grad school, and we did something similar with like a concierge program. People would come in and say, I need a gift for my 8-year-old nephew, and he really likes dinosaurs, and we'd be like, okay, let's get you a stack of books we recommend. And so I know that makes a huge difference in people's lives, and really gets books in the right hands. I love that personalization. I would love to hear more about the rise in independent bookstores that we've seen in the last 3 years, because I know pre-COVID and now following COVID, in the era following COVID, we've seen a big difference in bookstores coming together and really rising up and creating community. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and experience on that.
Sure. When we opened in 2014, I felt, even though some people were like, you're going to do what now? Because I had a background in college administration, and I was like, and they're like, is this, even with one of the people, when I was looking to lease a building or rent, they were like, what, you want to open a bookstore like in this environment of, online and things? And I was like, yeah, I really believe communities want places to come and gather and to talk with real people and not be an algorithm. And I don't know, it felt like it was the right time. And I think we were coming out of people having the convenience of online. So even though that seems to be in conflict of then what happened during the pandemic, that everybody sort of had to go online for some reasons, I think people started to value the community aspect that once it was missing, and they were online even more so. So I think there's been growth. I would be really good, and if I had some statistics here for you, but I know they've been on the growth, just from being on, Facebook groups, as well as, industry trends. And we go to conferences on a yearly basis that, new bookstores are always coming. And I probably get maybe a phone call every month that's like, can I pick your brain? I'm looking to open an indie bookstore. People are wanting to do this. And because I think they're finding it to be successful. You don't necessarily get into it to make a gazillion dollars, but you're here to talk about books and put the right, I like the way you said that, you put you get the right books in the right hands. And there's just something priceless about that people are valuing. And so does it mean they're going to cost maybe $3 more or $5 more than what you might get online? And is it going to show up at your house? Sure. But once they start seeing the intrinsic value of, that could be an entire podcast in and of itself, of that, we donate to schools and nonprofits throughout this area. We get hit up. People have big auction nights here and trivia nights, and they're always asking for gift cards and donations, as well as we do educator nights that are free nights for any educators in the region to talk about books coming up, and we do a discount for them, as well as we employ people that are right here in the neighborhood, and we pay more taxes than a bazillionaire does. So there's all these really specific reasons that financially for communities we're good, but also just as a place to come together, whether you're getting help from a bookshop, a bookseller, or whether you're here to meet somebody, or anything in between, to attend any one of the author events. So you're supporting a debut author, and we've got an author tomorrow night that is a debut author, and we were going to host her here in the store, and then they did some social media, and all of a sudden we've got more people responding that has outgrown the store. So now we had to quickly go find a different, but for a debut author, it's incredible to be part of kind of hyping them up and really getting their books in the right hands. So that's a really long answer to your question, but I think there is a reason that people want to come together and they trust bookstores in a way once they get to know the staff and the staff gets to know them. It's a relationship.
And what are the best ways that readers and people can support their local independent bookstores? Maybe the top 3.
I'd say one would be to continuously share on social media if you can, even if you just were here and you bought a book, to just kind of remind people that the independent stores are there and just, look what I got today, or resharing an event, or, hey, come with me to do this. I think the more that people see than they remember is certainly one of the best ways, as well as to do the gentle education when somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go grab that online. You could say, or, I kind of do that sometimes when I'll have friends share a link to an online retailer. I'm like, or you can get this at your local indie, or I'll link to Bookshop, because some communities don't have an independent bookstore. So, you can always go on Bookshop as well. And, you're going to find generated lists and suggested reading, and there's just so much ways to do that. And just attend events. I think that's great for us realistically with publishers. The more people that show up at our events, the more authors we're going to get to host. And it's just kind of that, people are like, you should have so-and-so. And we're like, yeah, that's great. We need to show that we can have and host people so that you kind of not legitimize, but kind of, because they're not going to, you need to have people so that then when they're going to send you someone, you have people to come to these events. And so those would be kind of my top ones of just, those share the information, little gentle education, and show up.
One of my favorites too is bookstore merch. I'm a big merch collector. I think every single t-shirt I have that's not just a plain work t-shirt is a bookstore t-shirt of some sort. I collect them, and all my mugs are bookstore mugs. The only pen I will use is actually from an independent bookstore in New York. I buy them in bulk once a year.
I'm going to New York next week. Where do I got to go?
Books Are Magic.
Oh,
the Books Are Magic
absolutely.
Pen. Something about it. It just is magic to me. It is. It truly is. So bookstore merch, I know that really helps bookstores as well.
That's a great suggestion. Yes.
Both in marketing and in bringing money back into the local community. So that's my 2 cents on that. But what are some ways that the public can get involved with this new USA Today corporation? How can they follow it and learn more? I'm looking for where are they going to see this list, I guess?
So the list is online. You can sign up for any of the USA Today newsletters, but specifically there's a bookish one. So now I was getting that even when it was on the bestseller list was on hiatus, but now I'm getting not only bookish content, but now the bestseller list. So you can find it online, and then it's in the paper. The online list launches every Wednesday morning, I think at 6 a.m. And then it's in the actual USA Today paper on Thursdays. So they can see that. And then our kind of 3 pieces of content get dropped sometime during the week. Usually maybe the first time it happened, everything dropped on Wednesday, which was great, but it was I think, it was so much great information. So then this, I think last week they sort of staggered the 3 articles. And I think this week we'll start seeing tomorrow, the bestseller list and then one of the articles. And so again, just sort of sharing the articles is just really fun, because whether it's the Dear Abby, Dear Bookseller, which I just think that's definitely going to, I think, catch some steam, that people are going to tune in. I mean, these letters they write like little novellas or epistolatory. Is that how you say it? And books, it's just to read what's going on with people, whether it's a really great fun thing or a sad thing or really funny. It's kind of a sneak peek behind the scenes. And so they can share any of those articles. They can certainly click through on Bookshop and order any of the books if they don't have their own local bookstore. And certainly if they'd like to order a mystery box, you never know if your letter will be featured kind of next.
And then am I correct? So the USA Today list, because it's so involved with the indie bookstores, it really is determined by what's selling the most and the widest in that week's time. So it's kind of like readers cast your votes by shopping at an independent bookstore.
Oh my gosh, you need to email me that, and we're going to take that. That's going to be our next lead. We are going to lead with that. That's
Absolutely.
exactly. That's exactly what you can say. We're gonna have to recapture that.
Sure
Rewind.
thing. I give
I
you full
love
permission.
Olivia McCoy is gonna be so quoted on this headline. But exactly, and there's getting more. I don't want to say that we're not still the list still. I mean, it's got a list on the front. It's still being fed by online sales and some of the big box stores, but it is getting other information from bookstores and bookshop and hopefully the ABA in the future, that it will continue to shift a little bit to definitely be more of the people's book list, even though it is more than it is today, because that's what they want. They want, I mean, so if there's something, I think the first week, I don't even try to remember the title of it, but like Joseph Beth in Kentucky had this author, and they, that I think it was like with an academic press, and it was like showing up as like in the top 10 because that was real, and they'd sold it, so many copies at an author event that you're not going to ever see that in some of the other lists. And so when we're hosting places at some of these independent bookstores, which is important to publishers and certainly important to authors, it's going to make a difference in the list.
So exciting. I love that it feels like we get a hand in making those lists, maybe a little bit more hands-on than the others, or that we've seen in the past, even from the USA Today list. So I love this rebrand, re-announcement. This is so exciting for us. And then I do want to ask, and this is getting into the nitty-gritty, so I'm not sure if this is your area of expertise, but how these lists are different than the Wall Street Journal list or the New York Times list. Is this because it's more incorporated with indies?
I believe so. And so this is definitely not, so I don't want to be misquoted. So all I can speak to is our list. So and our list is not massaged. It is pure numbers, and it does have more indies reporting than other lists, I believe. So I think it's going to continue to grow as more indies report, or like when we get the other ones in, but you would have to dive in. And I think each one of them is pretty transparent about how they arrive at their list. I mean, it's in the small print really below, but that is what has been overwhelmingly restated for the two differences. One, we have 150 on our list. And so, you might say, well, you're number 62, but you're number 60, you're a USA Today best-selling author, and still 62 out of the country with all the thousands, gazillions of books is still phenomenal. Whereas on the other list, if you're not in the top 10, or I forget what some of the numbers are, you can't claim that. And so, does it have necessarily the highbrow, but the opportunity? And again, once it's representing what people are actually reading, I think that that's what the intention is and has been, and can continue to grow. It'll be massaged and tweaked, I think, as we, we're in week 2 and as it goes through, but that is what the major difference is, kind of the length of the list, which they've always been 150. And, I was lucky enough to go watch, a friend of mine works at Penguin Random House, and she had invited me to come kind of watch. We knew Hoda and Jenna were going to talk about the new bestseller list. So I was like, she's like, come watch it. I was like, okay. And so, because it was that, it's big news. And they just within, publishing out, they're excited. They're excited for their authors. They're excited that this is back. This is another place to show up and to have your work recognized, in a very public way.
And this list, it's any authors eligible? Authors that are available through Ingram are eligible?
It is any authors. So I have seen a title on there that I don't necessarily know if it was, I don't think I even saw it on Ingram for people who follow which is a wholesaler that a lot of the independent bookstores use. But they had shown up because I think of an event and where some reporting was happened. And so, Nancy, who works with some self-published authors or some smaller press authors, it gets exciting news for people in that side of the business as well, because it's truly an open list. So it is not, it is not only if you show up here.
So then our advice for authors looking to compete in the race for USA Today bestseller, then I should say, those authors can be independent, they can be self-published, they can be traditionally published, but the way to go about trying to hit this list would be events in independent bookstores, sales across the country in independent bookstores, online and in person, kind of a mix of all of that. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. So whether they, if they publish with Ingram Spark, those numbers are going to potentially get report. If we sell a book in our store, for sure, bookshops reporting, I don't think consistently, just because they're also launching a few other things. But anywhere that they could be selling is a great idea. So yes, go talk to your local indie. You might need to rent the space to host your own event, depending on how they do it and things like that. And then check with them and ask if they report and where they report. And that's what I think USA Today, and I don't know if there's notes or things. I do know that there is a email that I think is pretty shareable, that if independent bookstores want to share their sales and they aren't reporting to USA Today yet, all they have to do is send an email in to this particular email address at USA Today, and it gets reported.
I'm going to track it down. I will put it in the
I
description
think I've got
down
it. I'll
below.
Yeah, I'll find it for you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot. What are you most excited about specifically? And it can be a repeat of something you've already said, but what are you excited about the most? I
am just excited about the national attention that independent bookstores are getting. There's so many of us, and each one of us is different. Even in St. Louis, we're lucky enough to have this brilliant literary community. I think there's 5, 6 even independent bookstores here. And it's great that we all work kind of in community with each other, because we've got different audiences, or we attract different events, or we do different things. But it is such a supportive, incredible opportunity. And with book banning that's going on, it's certainly a safe place for people to come and actually find books and be able to have conversations. And there's just no place like an independent bookstore. And I really believe that. And so the uplifting of this through this national publication is just unbelievable.
Amazing. We're going to include some links and some places to follow everything down below in the description, but where can our listeners and watchers follow and learn more about you, The Novel Neighbor, USA Today, etc.?
Sure. We talked about, if they want to sign up for any of the newsletters through USA Today, just kind of go search their newsletters and sign up, or we can put that link in there. Our website, we sell books online as well. We jokingly, though, I think they've got something about we know how to use the mail. It's a funny thing that they talk about on TikTok. Speaking of which, on TikTok, my staff who does our TikTok, Cassie King, Skis, Maddie Haley, like all of them are phenomenal.
They're amazing.
They're amazing. You've seen me like twice, because they do it so much better than me. I do a Facebook Live, so you can also follow us on Facebook at Novel Neighbor, our Instagram at Novel Neighbor. We're dipping our toes in with Threads. And if you're interested in learning more about the nonprofit, it's at Noble Neighbor. And that's just got great information. We got to do an event with Terry Crews last year, who's used to be a football player, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And he picked 2 independent bookstores to do events with, because he wrote this middle grade book called Terry's Crew. And we were one of the ones. And so he went to 3 different schools, hyped up these kids, talked about his struggle, told them the story, told them about the book, and then each of those kids got to go home with one of those books. And so if that's a heart of yours of kind of equity and literacy, then make sure to check us out on Noble Neighbor as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on and talk to me about this last minute.
Absolutely. Anytime you want to talk books, I'm here for you.
Thank you. And listeners and watchers, if you like this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and share it with anyone else that might be interested. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many services, visit smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.